Stay tuned. The series is going to wake up your magic. As they say, to avoid or not to avoid. When do you avoid something and when do you avoid it? And that's called internal knowing and discernment, right? These are things that only you are able to weigh and understand. And when I talk about weigh, it's like, it's a knowing. You kind of have to know where you are and the experiences that you've had. And I know that it feels like a little bit like confusing at times, but what we're seeing is that people are using everyone's information and they are avoiding from using their own information. And so there's a gap now of avoidance, okay, when there's a void that sits there between you and your own knowing. So it's like you're avoiding to tap into your inner knowing and your higher self. When too often people are getting confused and misunderstanding the sense of avoidance by inner patterns of either getting too overwhelmed with the information, not being able to break down enough of the information that you create an avoidance to deal with it because you just don't know how to deal with it, right? So you avoid it because you don't want the conflict. But what if that avoidance is actually creating an undercurrent of inner conflict and vibrational conflict? So bringing in an understanding to you being in a place of knowing you now starts canceling this avoidance energy that I see so often overtake people, and they call it anxiety, all right? Or they call it, stress, or they call it, a mental breakdown or an emotional, an emotional freeze. You're avoiding from being in tune with yourself and dealing with that true emotion versus you breaking away and going doing something else. And it's such a fine line because we are being brought into focus on what you love, focus on what you want, focus on all these things, but you can't focus on the higher aspects of a higher life when the foundation of your life is very thin and weary and fragmented. So you can't avoid the internal connectors and your internal pillars, okay? You can't keep on avoiding that because they won't have the strength or the intensity to hold that thought form into true manifestation. And that comes from you knowing who you are. If you're a person that avoids the conflict, that's good and well. But you also got to get to a point is like, is the conflict are you avoiding the conflict, or is the conflict there because there is internal conflict that just needs to be brought up to be released? There's so many different ways to do this. And modeling other people right now in the time where we are, you need discernment and you need the ability to know when not to avoid the internal, need to connect to your inner wisdoms. Avoiding the time and the space and the reality of interconnectiveness is very important, because in a time of super rich exchanges and a speed of information that we as human beings are undergoing with cellular growth and cellular damage just as quickly as the cells are growing, is as quickly as the cells are deforming and separating. Okay, why? Because the vibrational intake is of conflict to your natural rhythm. So you can see it. You can see the framework of, people that are undergoing these changes. They can't think as quickly. They're not reactive. They're more frozen in their emotions. They're more numb to a society that is avoiding the natural rhythms of life in itself. The way we think comes from the way we think and the thoughts around you. So you have to understand, you can't avoid your inner thoughts, because those thoughts are framing a network, of energy around you. So you avoiding your internal communicator, you're avoiding your internal communicator, and you're avoiding your internal connector, means you now you've got a gap. You're avoiding aspects of yourself that are very valuable, to you serving your soul contract. At the end of the day, you've got to come in and say, okay, am I avoiding who I am to serve a need to what I think I am? And that's a very big, and it might be a big split, it might be a small split. It doesn't make a difference how big or small it is. You start avoiding that, you're going to find yourself on one side of it and then your other self on the other side of it. And what happens, and I see this too often, people avoid turning inwards and they avoid communicating their inner truth to serve a passive reliance on what feels good. But you have to understand that we come from a place of avoidance in who we are as a society. We're not brought up to kind of deal with our emotions as we are. We are learning as we are growing, and then there are a lot of rules and judgments which create a lot of sensitivities. I'm reaching out and sharing with you, don't avoid the fact that you are sensitive. Don't avoid, the fact that you are empathic and that you are exchanging thought forms and feelings and energies with Mother Earth, nature, just as much as you're sharing it in a bar, just as much as you're sharing it in a core group at book club, just as much as you're sharing it in an interaction with a deal as you are, selling your home or buying a car or renting a boat or, sharing needlework or a computer laptop, anything. Avoidance to your inner knowing creates, avoidance in your outer world. And that's just as simple as that. So when you start realizing, I'm going to close this gap for myself and I'm going to close the void, I'm going to close this void so that I'm in tune with how I'm thinking. And I realize, that if I avoid, say, a situation, let's say like a drama, how do you know that you're not the person that actually enjoys a little bit of that drama that brings you that excitement? Because if you don't tap into these natural rhythms, you're going to start creating false addictions, okay, to what you think is bringing you excitement. And so either you get revved up and accelerated, okay, to close the void to you and your soul path, meaning what you've come here to do, or you're creating the void between your soul path and you start needing other artificial, substances. And it can come in any way. A lot of people are, they just zone out. And you can zone out by eating, you can zone out by smoking, you can zone out by drinking, you can zone out with sex, you can zone out with gossiping. It's endless. But if you're closing the void, okay, to what makes you feel good in a way that it brings balance and you are in tune with this higher knowing, then you are no longer avoiding your inner whispers of your soul and your wisdoms. What people think is that, your guardians and your angels and your higher self speak loud. They don't. These are inner whispers. This is your intuition. And when the void is big and loud and confusing and distorted, you have to work harder at tuning in. And too often you're too tired. We're worn out. We wake up tired, we go to bed tired, you're tired of the mundane stuff, and this is just wearing you down in avoidance of an inner calling. So anytime you find yourself avoiding something, just ask yourself, why are you really avoiding it? What's the intuitive message that's there? Is it a person that you're avoiding? Why you're avoiding it? Is it the situation that you're avoiding? Why? Close the void. Go connect with your higher self and know what your inner wisdom with that, how you feel about it. Because if you leave it, the void's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you start avoiding this and you start avoiding that, and then it's a ripple effect, and then it starts amplifying and magnifying, and then all of a sudden it's so big that it voids you out of your own game. And it happens to all of us because this is how we learn. This is how we come to experience our lives. This is who we are. We are humans becoming a higher aspect of ourselves. We learn through the experiences. And once you touch that red flame and it burns you, you're going to avoid it the next time. So use your intelligence, use your connectiveness, and know there's a duality in everything and an opportunity, okay, to tune in and close the void to you being in tune with your higher self. It's so quick. Anything right now, because the vibrational intensity and conflict is so vast right now around all of us, between technology, between the stresses, between everything that's erupting right now in the world, it's never been so intense as it is right now. We're all avoiding something. But when it's like a avoidance that it's becoming a pattern, listen within. Close that void. Because you're here for a reason and you have a purpose. And that purpose is not to avoid your soul contract and who you've meant and can become. Don't avoid those opportunities that are uncomfortable to be lovingly straightforward and firm. Or avoid that opportunity to forgive and have an understanding. Rather, move away from judgments and self-judgments. move away from, going so fast away from something because you're fearful of that actually catching up. I just need to avoid it. You can't avoid it. It's in your matrix. It's in your energy field. I talk about your energy field being a field of creation. When you know something is disturbing you, pause, breathe, don't avoid it. Close the void. Why is this thing, knocking at your door? And then you know why. Well, maybe it knocked at the door as well, and it's just knocking it back. Everything is by the law of correspondence. Everything is connected. But there is a beautiful synergy that spirituality is and overrules everything. Everything that is spiritual. Now, you might not believe it, you might not think it, you might not act like it is, but it still is. That is the cosmic dance of ourselves. We are evolving as we grow and experience. And you either grow one way or you grow the other way. So you either grow in avoidance of your higher self and your potential, or you void that gap because only you come to know who and what you've come to do, by the soul contract of your agreements in the relationship with others, but it all comes back to yourself. If you are avoiding your inner connection with your higher self, you're voiding your life. You might as well be playing games all day, because now you're not contributing anything to yourself or to your book of life. Learn to step back when you need to, but also learn to come forward if you need to. Learn to understand your own rhythm so that you void the noise, the conflict, the vibrational things that no longer fit. I hear so often, I just need to avoid my mother. Why? You chose her. You're a avoider. All you're doing is creating a gap in your own soul matrix and that lineage. You can deal with her in a way without avoiding her. Close that void. And if it's no longer working, well, then void the contract. Cancel it. From a place of love and attunement and mercy, so that there is grace. Leaving yourself in the void of confusion and noise and desperation and fear and avoiding situations that leave you suspended, sooner or later those things have got to come forward, and be tied together for a reconnection and self-evaluation. So, anytime you catch yourself avoiding something, give yourself that pause, breathe in that opportunity to void that gap that separates you from your higher self, and void the noise so that you close that gap and you're stronger within. And watch how you just simply avoid the chaos by natural balancing and natural. There's not even a word. You just naturally turn it around and you go, oh my goodness, I just simply avoided that circumstance and it was such a blessing. And that's where it goes. So just understanding those words is everything. All right.
You want to laugh again? You want to open up and awaken your wisdom box
so that you can manifest your dreams in this lifetime experience.
We are empathic. We are sensitive. We are intuitive. We are psychically attuned to this energy world that is awakening who we are. You're so much more than who you think you are. And remind yourself that your higher self absolutely knows what you want. You are the creator of your
Future
life. Holds for you what you have put into your future, what you're thinking, but most of all, what you're feeling. That is what is coming to you. That is how the universe talks. You are the creator of your life. We all are.
Are you ready?
My name is Vanahaha.